always have to remember to record our session. Yeah, you talked to me about your town and where you were from, and so you're really you have taken lessons from people in encaustic, and your work is beautiful. I loved the one of the house. I love that one of the house. It was awesome.
Thanks.
Yeah, really nice. And I feel like did you use a tacking iron to get that cool texture at the top?
A what? No, I didn't.
You didn't use, like, cause I have this iron. Have you ever used an iron like this?
You know, I just used an iron on some of these because I'm not good with the razor. I can show you what I did. I made gouges in her face, which didn't thrill me. So
you know what? I think that the razors are hard. Hold on, I'm trying to turn my fan on. I agree with you. I don't think the razors, especially on paper. Like using a razor blade on paper is really challenging. Oh, let me see that one. Hold that one up. I love it. Can you
see what I did to her face though with the razor?
Yeah, but we can fix it. Did you ever like have to spot photographs? Do you know what spotting? Do you know what spotting means?
No.
Okay, so when in the old days, I was I worked in printing photos. So what I had to do was if a piece of dirt or a hair or anything got in the photo, I had to remove it or fill it in. So I could literally put little gray dots in the scratch so that you couldn't see it anymore. But
I had no idea how you would do that. I took 4 semesters of photography back in the darkroom in the 80s at the university. Yeah. But I don't think we ever got that far.
Right. Well, I could definitely show you. I mean, the idea is that really nobody is going to examine the artwork up close except for you. And that if it's I always say it's like the 6 feet thing. So if you hold it back like this from a distance, if you can see, the thing that you're going to see is bright white. So if you're just able to put a little bit more wax over it and maybe a little bit of gray tone, you're going to blend out that scratch. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but I'm sure.
I'll show you how. I can easily show you how. Okay.
So I like this one. I mean, I like
that one.
I worked on 2 of them.
And that's is that one on a board?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked on this one too.
Okay, nice.
Yeah. And so I like both of these, but I like parts of them.
Okay. I understand that. I feel the same way sometimes. So how can we make it so you like all of them?
Well,
let's talk about the first one. And I also was gonna paint this one for you. Let me watch. You could watch me. Let's talk about this one. Hold it up for me again. And hold it vertical like this, flat. Okay. So talk to me about the groom. What is the purpose of what is right behind his elbow? Right under, that. What is that?
I think it's gesso.
Okay. And why so bright? What is it? What was your thinking on why it was so?
I was thinking, that maybe I could do some, what do you call it? That translucent glaze on part of this somewhere.
Oh, okay. And how about in a dark color? Now, you don't always have to be stuck with black and white just because you're using a black and white image, right? So what other colors, what other dark colors could you use there that could be really nice?
Well, if it's too dark, you won't see the difference between his.
Right, so what color could we use? What color do you kind of have there? Dark. You have like an ochre yellow, like a gold. Is that like a golden ochre color?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. So what if we use some brown? Do you like brown or dark brown or bluish
Yeah,
brown?
that's what we used. When we were working on this one last time, we used some brown, but the brown's kind of dissipated. It's kind of turned into like a mocha.
But I love mocha. Mocha is like my favorite color. Cafe au lait, dark chocolate colored brown.
Yeah,
Why
I
don't
like that too.
we,
Yeah.
why don't we make some wax that's like 50% medium, 50% paint in like a dark color.
Okay.
But
You
not
mean like
black,
that?
not black, right? Because you don't, exactly what you said, you were exactly right. You don't want to lose the definition of his arm and the shape of his elbow and his, you know, his jacket. So, but you want to get rid of that bright white, because what do you want the viewers to, you want the viewer to look at who? The
Right.
bride, right?
Right.
So if you have something that's white and bright on the other side of the bride, people's eyes are going to get confused. They're going to go like between the two things, but you want them to stay with the bride. So anything that will take down that bright white and soften those hard corners, I think would look nice. And that can be a translucent glaze, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I also like this. There's a very pale pink right here
I love it. Yeah.
and right here.
Perfect.
Yeah, I don't know
Perfect.
where
And
that came.
yeah, and I think her veil looks awesome, and I think the flowers look good. Now, this is something, so look at my, look, I have this of yours, right? But see
Yeah.
how this, I left the edge on, right? Because we've been talking about edges. But one of the things that I like to do is I like to play around with the idea that they're coming out of the frame.
Right.
So at the bottom, both of your figures could be grounded at the bottom of the panel. They could be coming out of the frame, right? So it wouldn't take much, right? Even if I just had,
Right.
even, so look, I'm gonna point this at my palette for a second. Can you see?
Yeah.
Here's your
Right.
picture. Here's my palette, right? I'm actually
Yeah.
gonna take like a little bit of white encaustic, and I'm gonna also do just a quick base coat on this photo because I don't have any wax on this photo. So I don't like to put any
Right.
encaustic paint on the photo
Right.
before I have that nice layer of wax medium, right?
Yeah. Right.
So I always joke, and I tell my students, I'm like, peanut butter jelly sandwich, right? Like, so this is bread, and then you want to put peanut butter, jelly, peanut butter, jelly. Like, I don't care how many layers of peanut butter and jelly you put on there, but your bread needs, like, you know, it has to be the bread and then the layers of wax, right?
Okay.
And I always start with the wax medium. And technically, this is mud, right? So I'm waiting. Oh my God, I actually ran out of wax medium this week on like Wednesday. So I'm just been like getting through the week on what I have here, but I'm just gonna go ahead. So first of all, I'm gonna paint like the whole, when I do my wax medium, I paint the whole thing. I don't worry about their faces. I just go for it, right? And also I was just using a kind of I always call that brush like a prickly pear. It's kind of like, you know, it's a bristly brush. But here, this is a nice hake brush, this one.
Yeah.
So if I want smoother on their faces, I can use a smoother brush.
So I prepared one because I thought we would, you know, start from the beginning. So this one already has wax on it.
Okay. Okay, so now we're at the same point. We both have one with wax on it. And then I'm gonna just let this cool. And you can see, like from mine, it's very cloudy, right? And it all looks the same. So I think I mentioned this to you, but this tool, do you see this tool?
Yes.
This is a palette knife.
Yes.
So this is a better tool for scraping, I think, than a razor blade, because if I scrape this with a razor blade, I would probably also scratch it. So what I do is I take the palette knife right? And I just gently start to move the wax around, right? Also, right now my wax is fairly warm.
Right.
And if you everybody's different. Like, look, nobody is the same type of encaustic artist. Some people like their wax hard and cold to scrape it, and some people like it warm. So these are personal choices. Like, please don't feel like there's right and wrong, right?
No, I experiment a lot.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I want you to, because like, what if I take the heat gun, right, and I zap this? Oh wait, sorry, my heat gun's not plugged in. If I zap this real quick, I'm gonna make that surface a lot more, a lot softer. It's gonna be so much easier to scrape it, right? The problem, of course, the problem with using heat is that sometimes you can take off too much, right?
Yeah.
But I often like to go, sort of back and forth between these two, hot and cold and textured and smooth. So, like, you can see, I can't even see his face right now, right?
Right.
So here I go with the palette knife, right? And then look, it's just like so amazing and beautiful how I can just kind of gently like reveal their faces,
That's it. Yeah, that's the gentle part is the part that I didn't do on that other one with the I was trying to learn how to use the razor, but it definitely takes a definite technique.
You know what? I think the razor is from that more sort of heavy duty, like I always call it discovery, because for
Yeah.
me, the razor blade is like when I've layered a couple colors together and
Yeah.
I've fused it and I kind of want to create texture, because it is such a, like, it's almost like a bully. Like, that tool is like a bully, it's like
Yeah.
kind of like
Right.
the heavy guns, right? I mean,
Yeah.
whereas other tools such as pottery tools or the palette knife can be more gentle. The thing about the palette knife is that I think it can make the areas very smooth,
Yeah.
right? And I feel like their faces are sharper now. And I feel like I
Uh-huh.
have enough wax on their faces so it's not naked. But now I can kind of just like go from here. So
Okay.
let me just show you one thing. So I wanted to talk about going outside the frame.
Right. Okay.
So here is like white encaustic. So
Right.
what I might do is I might just start adding, white to the bottom of her dress,
Right.
to kind of just, so now she's like out of the frame, right? She literally, like, the dress, like, we just completely overrode. And there's a little bit of pink in this, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I can put a little bit of it here, and then again, like a little bit of it just painted in her dress. And a lot of times when I'm painting like this, I just try to be loose with it because I know I can like sculpt it back. And I don't want to be too cookie cutter because I like, I think that fabric has movement, it's
Yeah.
not concrete. So,
Right.
but that looks kind of cool, I think, where now she is coming forward out of this frame.
Right.
And then I could use any dark color wax. Like, I think I have, this is actually like kind of like a dark blue, purpley blue. And I could go around, this. Now, I am a little carefree with my colors. And one of the reasons that I feel like I can be carefree with my wax colors is because I feel like I can tone them with another color. Does that make sense? Yeah. So even though I just used blue and pink,
Yeah.
if I wanted to make this black, how could I make it black? By adding what?
Black.
Right,
Huh?
black what though? Not black wax. I would add black what?
Oh. Would
Tan
you add tan pastels?
Yeah, exactly. So I sometimes just really try to like free myself up and just
Yeah.
be like, because, and I agree with you totally. Like, I would not want to paint on this photo with black wax because you would never be able to get any tonal separation between the groom's black jacket and the black background and black paint. It would just be like no depth. There would be like nothing there, right?
Right.
Okay. So,
So
but do you
last
see?
last week I put dark blue
Oh,
on this
good.
one.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I
This
love
is
it.
this is a different one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you want to, are we going to work on that one?
We could.
Okay, let's go for it. So why don't we do the same thing? Why don't you do what I just did? And I'd love to see you take some white
White. Yeah. Okay.
and look how pretty she looks. I mean, now it's just starting to look like a painting. It's sort of like, I always think of like, I just started horseback riding again. And I have so many similarities between like riding a horse and painting. And it's
Yeah.
like those moments when you just have to like take control and kind of like make the decision for both of you. You're like, no, you're gonna look like this, you know? So I think your goal is to make these photos look more painterly and more creative and just prettier and interesting. Okay, I love what you're doing. So maybe a little less opaque on that. Maybe a little bit more medium in there.
Okay.
More translucency.
All right.
And also maybe like a tad of a color tint, like it could be pink or blue or yellow or.
Okay. I gotta wait until my brush gets unstiff.
Unstiff. Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay, well, look back at mine. So what am I going to do next? So with mine, I need to fuse it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And while I'm fusing, I'm making these like decisions about what I like about my brush strokes, you know, what I sort of want to stay textured and what I maybe want to make smooth, right? And remember, I used a couple different brushes here, right? So I used this little wooden bristly brush, and I also used this lovely like 1-inch hake brush. Okay. So after it cools, I'm going to take my palette knife, and I almost always give it a little scrapey, you know, I mean, why not just blend it? It's like a blending tool, right? So like, even, have you ever done any like Photoshop work, like in Photoshop?
No. I've tried, but I'm not good at that.
You know what? I'm with you on that. I'm not good at it either. But one of the things that I think is kind of interesting is that, you know, if you composite 2 images together, or you cut one out and you put it on top of another one, there's this tool that is called the blending tool. So that like sort of softens the outside line, right? And makes everything look sort of, I think, just prettier. So I often like to use this palette knife as what I call the blending tool. And I can kind of like thin the wax where I want to thin it. I can move it. I can kind of smooth it, right? So, and I'm not cutting my paper. I'm not stabbing it.
Right.
Right. And I think that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to clear his hand, right? So I'm going to like remove extra wax on his arm so he can have his arm, and I'm going to clear his hand. I think his hand we'll leave his hand visible here, right? Okay. All right, so I kind of like it. It's painterly. I can see his hand. I scrape that back. I can see his face. I like that it's not so bright. And then you know what's fun too is that like you can like layer it, you know, and like, all right. And one thing I want to say as a little suggestion, okay, so right now I have a bright color and a dark color, right? Well, so what happens when you're in reality is that even a white dress is going to have what's called a shadow. So what if I use this color that I used on the left, as my shadow color, and I put a little bit of it on her dress, under her arm. Do you see how that's kind of like just unifying the composition? And
Yeah.
look, I'm even going to put a little bit on it as an undertone. But do you notice how that made the
Oh
whole
yeah.
thing so much more three-dimensional?
Where did that blue come from? Was it on your hot
This
plate?
is, yeah, this is the same blue that I
Right.
used on the left. I used it
Right.
just very lightly on the white. And this is really, I think, helpful. I think it unifies the artwork, and I also think that it's good to mix the colors. Now, what else do you think I should do? If I had I should probably take this light color and reverse the action. Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure. Yeah.
So where does he have a highlight? He has a highlight like here on his arm. He has one like right here on his flower, like maybe a little on his lapel, maybe right here on his sleeve. Maybe, I mean, and again, this might be too bright, but at least it's giving his body some shape.
Some
And
definition. Yeah. I really like the way you defined it on the bride's dress.
yeah, so, and then look, of course it's too strong on the groom, right? So I'm gonna
Yeah.
take that palette knife and I'm just gonna break up that line so that it looks like light. Like if you ever notice like how light moves around, like a lot of times when I'm not making art and I'm just outside, I like to notice how the light is hitting the trees or how the light is like dancing through the flowers.
Right.
But even this, especially this line, really makes his shoulder pop
Yeah, it does.
because it's a
This
highlight.
his
Yeah,
folder's pretty. I mean, his shoulder's pretty obscured in this one.
that's fine. But then that could just be an abstraction. You can just have fun with playing around with that. Okay, but all right, let's work on her dress a little bit. And
Right.
did
I
you
think
pick?
the white wax was it was too opaque, and I put medium on top of it, and it's too thick now. I just need to hit it with the heat gun.
Okay, and do you have a scraper tool?
I have a what?
Do you have a tool that you're using for scraping?
Yeah, I have this palette
Oh,
knife right
good.
here.
Yep, perfect. So you can scrape that back a little bit with that tool. So I'm grabbing a couple pieces of tooling and stuff that I have to do her veil.
Uh-huh.
So if you look, like I have like a lot of little pieces like of this type of thing.
Nice.
And I also have like a little bit of a lace with a flower texture on it. Did you see this one? Look at this one.
Oh, that's really, yeah, that's pretty.
Okay, so I'm going to try to use both of these pieces of lace.
I'm watching.
Okay, you ready? I didn't want to rush you. If you're happy doing what you're doing, I can wait.
No, I can watch.
Okay. Is it coming off a little better?
It's still pretty thick.
Yeah. So two things. And when I go to add the veil, I might add just another, I did add a little bit of blue undertone. And I think I'm going to do this veil in white, but I also think I'm really going to like really try to make it translucent. A little bit more translucent because I don't want it to be so bright white. Like I think the tendency is to want to go right to bright colors, but I think that they should be more mid-tone and that you should use another material to make them brighter. So let me just demonstrate that. Also, do you see how this, I can put it on as like an arch, like over her head might be nice, as if it's,
Right.
so I'm just going to do that. So and remember, I'm not going to worry about the groom, right? We talked about that before. I'm just going to go outside the line because I might decide that I like that, or I might just want to like work that down. Okay, so first I'm going to do this piece. And once I put the wax on there, I'm going to wait. And sometimes I even take my palette knife and I go over the top of the lace as it's cooling and just kind of like gently tap it, the pattern into, just kind of rub it. It's just kind of like a little bit of a gentle rubbing. Okay, and then I'm gonna pull this piece out. I got a really nice lace pattern.
Uh-huh.
And then I'm gonna go ahead and like take this tooling and I'm gonna like scrunch it up. So look, I kind of just tore a piece like this. And I'm gonna make it, like we've talked about this before, but I tend to like to go
Well, yep.
like longer than I need.
Yeah.
So that I can decide if I want it to be sort of imaginary and a little bit fantasy. And then I kind of like tack it down. And I'm also gonna like sort of overlap. Again, I'm gonna use this very like mid-tone. Notice that I didn't go too bright white with this, right?
Right.
Because watch, I basically want to just create another opportunity that I can actually go brighter if I want to go brighter, right? And again,
Right.
I'm going to tap this down a little bit with my palette knife over the tooling. I'm going to spread it out. I'm going to go different directions. Okay, and then I'm going to pull it up. Okay, so that's kind of a cool veil. Now, of course, I've completely lost her face, right? So I can take this tool and I can just start to gradually and gently sort of bring back her eye, right, and her face. But I don't want it to be like cookie cutter. Like I don't want it to be like a perfect oval. I just want it to be suggestive because if you've ever, and I know you have been to weddings, if you ever notice like it's really pretty, I think during a wedding when the bride's veil is kind of like moving around, right?
Uh-huh.
And flowing, right? Like kind of like it's pretty. So I'm gonna clear her hand a little bit. So what I would do now, I would fuse this very gently. Oh, I forgot about the groom. Wait, hold on. We gotta get the groom's face back. Here we go. He's buried. He's buried. All right, there we go. We got him back.
Okay.
All right, now we got them both. All right, good. And and my wax is getting sticky. All right, here we go. And I don't mind like this little extra texture around the outside. Like maybe I even put a little bit of this over here. Like who cares? Like let it be there. All right. So now she's got this great veil edge going on. Right?
Yeah.
And it's all
Nice. Yeah.
it's all not too bright. So the way that I like to brighten things is kind of not with the wax so much, but more with like with hand painting.
Sure.
Because what that really allows me is a little bit more control over where my highlights are
Yeah.
and what kind of pops forward. Like I could make like this side really pop. And then you always want to have a paper towel around so you can start playing around in this sort of like, addition and subtraction. And again, my key word here is like blending.
Uh-huh. Right.
And I could take the white and I could make some areas like really bright white.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then I could also pick like a neutral white, which is it's just like this is nice color. This is like it's almost like ivory or like very light coffee ice cream. But it's nice because it's just not quite as bright and it makes a nice like shading color. All right. So that could look kind of cool. And again, like I'm putting it on and blending it with the paper towel and putting it on and blending it with the paper towel,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. So let's see you work for a second. I'm gonna take a little break. Let's see you do something and I'll help you.
Okay, I was thinking I should not have so many choices here. I have too many choices, but yesterday I
Choices
was
of
gonna,
what? Choices of paint color or choices of stencils? What are you referring to?
too many pictures here.
Oh,
So,
too many pictures. Okay.
yeah, because I could paint her dress out of this one. And yesterday, I think it was, yeah, I wanted to tell you when you were doing the oil sticks. Yesterday I did this with pan pastels.
Yes.
I did this with pan pastels. So I did kind of the same thing you're doing, only instead of using oil sticks, I used pan pastels
Okay.
to make her veil not so
I love
white.
her veil and I love those white flowers, but I feel like her dress is too white.
Yeah, I do too. And I messed up because there were a couple brush hairs in here. And so I
Okay.
started digging in there to get them out. And now it's not, I need to, you can help me figure out what can I do to make that not so white and not so plain.
So we can use that as an underpainting and we can just paint right over it in like in another color, or we could scrape it back. So you have to kind of think about these, like when you get to this point where you're like, I don't love what's going on, you need to say, I can either add more or I can subtract. So both are good answers and both will work. You need to decide which technique works better for you and you feel more comfortable with. Does that make sense? So if you feel maybe at this point, maybe subtraction, you could grab your heat gun and put a little heat on it and take a little bit of that wax off.
Yeah, this isn't, I already scraped this down. I scraped it down to get the wax hairs out, and then I put pan pastels, so I don't think there's much wax in there.
Okay, so then let's add. And so let's add either a light gray or a light yellow or a beige or coffee color. I use that very translucent light blue, but it's kind of like a blue gray to give it a little bit of form. And you're gonna put it in her elbow, right? Because technically her arm, look, her arm is like this. And so she's gonna have an outside line of her arm and she has to have an inside line of her arm. Also, she's gonna have a shadow around her chest area, right?
Yeah, I want something to put some texture in here or something, so.
So do you want to add a little bit of like a light tooling fabric like this? Do you have something like this? What if the veil comes like down over her shoulder a little bit?
Yeah, maybe that's a good idea, huh? But then yeah.
Because that's what I did with the one that I have here, is I took the veil right over her shoulder.
Right, and so that's what I said when I said I have too many. This one, the veil is coming over her shoulder in this one.
Yeah, I like that better. That's what I did with that's what I have. I think it's good.
Okay, this is probably the one too, this one
So,
needs.
can I ask you a question? Have you ever used one of these? Have you ever used a woody crayon?
Yeah, I bought some. When you said to get them, I got them.
Okay, so watch this for a second. Watch me here, sweetie, watch. So if I go like this, right? So you see even like her hair, like she needs definition. So if I take the woody crayon and I go in here and I put a little bit and I rub it, look, now she has hair, right? Like,
Yeah.
and also it gives shape, right? To the veil, right? Through shading. Look, do you see? Look how much better that looks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And then
yeah.
look, we can do the same thing. So theoretically, like here's her neck. I can kind of like draw her neck. And then look, here's the neckline of the dress. So look, now she actually has a neckline on her dress, which she did not have before. And then
no, I think it was a high neck dress. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I just gave her a neckline because I didn't know. And now she has a neckline. Anyway, just for argument's sake. Okay, and then here is her sleeve, right? So, I mean, I just drew a little line here, but maybe this would help you too, is use that woody crayon a bit.
Sure, you know.
To kind of just do these shapes and shadows. Like, where is, oh yeah, I have that. Oh my God, I love that box so much. I was like, I don't want to get rid of the box, but then I couldn't. I just think they're the cutest crayons.
So you were using the brown one, right?
I was using the black one, but if you can use dark brown, you could use dark blue, you could use purple. I mean, look, Impressionist painters did not use black. They used the darkest color. Like, a lot of them, you could use purple, you could use brown. You don't have to use black. Black is very heavy-handed.
Oh.
And
so, yeah, I agree. And so, since I've already done away with her hair, it's probably not a good idea to put it back in there.
That's fine. You can let it go. If she doesn't have any hair right now, she's gonna be okay. She's gonna be okay. She's gonna be fine.
Yeah, I don't think I've tried these on top of the wax. That's
oh my God, they're so fun. Look, I'm drawing right now. Look, I'm adding greens into the bouquet.
Yeah.
And then you can just draw, and then you can take your paper towel, watch, and you can just blend. You can just go blend the drawing and soften the line, right?
Yeah.
Look how pretty. Like, I just added green under her bouquet, right?
Right.
Which really made the flowers pop forward. And I could take white and like a champagne color, like a little gold or a light like orange, and I could kind of just like pop these flowers. And remember, we're not going for what I call literacy. Like, we're not trying to be exact. We're painting these photos to make them abstract, right? Like, our goal is abstraction. Our goal is not to render them exactly as we see them, but to sort of fantasize, right? And go outside the line. I mean, outside the lines a little bit, to be playful.
Yeah, I just did the same thing. With the white that is too opaque, I just put it on the bottom of her dress.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Well, I didn't mean to do that because.
Oh, you don't like it? Oh, it's too opaque?
Yeah, I wanted to get it, I wanted to water it down some. I forgot that I was going to water it down.
Can you use the heat gun and just kind of, and make
Sure, yeah, I can.
Yeah. Okay, I got her. I took away that neckline. I gave her a high collar. I went back to the high collar. She's got the high collar now.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what it looks like, but I just kind of played around with it and made it something cool. Oh, but I think this is looking pretty.
It's amazing how quickly you do that.
I've been doing this every day of my life for the last 25 years.
Okay, well.
I know people do say that to me, and I was like, well, okay, it just takes practice. And that's really, that's really what you're going for, though, is just like, the more you do it, the better you'll get. It's just like, the more confidence you'll have. And I think a lot of art is about decision making.
Sure.
And intuition. So you kind of have to just learn, what skills you have and what techniques you enjoy, and then how you want to apply them. But it's not, it is about ability, but it's also about experience.
Sure.
So, and encaustic is a process-oriented material. So you need to learn, like, oh, what if I mix these two? And what if I you know, blend this? And what if I don't? What happens? And what if I use too much heat? And these are just sort of all challenges that the medium itself presents.
Yeah. Well, you know, it took me a long time to figure out what kind of like regular encaustic work I wanted to do before I started working on photos.
Yeah.
So this is like kind of like starting all over again because
Well, right, because right, your other work you didn't have, so you didn't have the photos in there, right?
right. The when I first became an encaustic
Artists, right.
artist, I did a lot of different
Okay, so
things.
right, so the challenges I think about using a photo are that you have this relationship. It's almost like you're married, like literally, no joke, like that we're painting a wedding picture, but it's like you're making a marriage of two different medias. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's helpful about painting photos is that they give you structure, right, and form, and they also really they teach you about lighting, right? They teach you about light value, like where lights and darks are, and
Uh-huh.
also about composition, you know?
I was thinking when you said that before, I was thinking, I think because you talked a lot about composition in the other videos I watched, and I thought a photo already had its composition, but it doesn't if you approach it the way you approach it because you change the composition.
You can change the composition, right? And you know what I just did recently, if you were following my Facebook, is I actually flipped a composition. So I actually forced a landscape into an upside down position and I painted it upside down. So, and then I altered the reality of the sky and the ground through painting, which was just kind of, it was really just a visual exercise for me, but it also proved, I think, very successful. So that I'm like, oh, this is something I can do again. I mean, so sometimes you have ideas that are creative and then you execute them technically, and then you're like, oh, this is a whole other thing that I like and I can do, and I like the results. And it's, you know, I've manipulated the composition basically, you know?
Sure, yeah, right.
Okay, so another thing I just did with this, which I think is interesting, is I added a couple colors to the bouquet, and not to take away like the whiteness of the flowers, but just to, sometimes I think that even if something is white, it's going to have what I call a tone to it because of light. Like, you know, some light is yellow, some light is blue. So I just added some little orange and purple spots in the flowers as the centers.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
I also took that blue and I filled in all the white areas of the top. And
I like it.
you like it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
part of me is tempted. Remember how we talked about this shape, like this furniture?
Yeah.
Like part of me is tempted to overpaint it. So what that would look like would be like, have you ever done masking tape lines? Have you ever done any masking tape?
Yes.
So it could be fun, and I think we mentioned this. Sort of work on this furniture idea. So I could just do, I don't know. I mean, and sometimes you can just kind of, so if you make a space like this, I could take a color. I'm just going to stay with that like whitey color. And this is where you can just like kind of get even more, a little bit playful, and you can just go, I'm going to make another thing happen over here. So I'm going to make more than one of those lines. But what I'm going to go for is kind of creating like this whole other side of the painting, which is going to be, I don't know, like a railing. I mean, it doesn't even really matter what it is, but I'm just going to create another sort of element to the artwork over here to kind of fill up this background, just right. Like I sometimes think about backgrounds, you know, not, I don't want them just to be voided space. Does that make, you know
Yeah,
what I mean?
right.
So what can I put in here? So a lot of times it's just, you know, a geometric pattern. It could be a bunch of circles. It could be a bunch of diamonds. It could be a bunch of stripes. It's just sort of something artistic and background noise, right? Like even when you take photographs, you know, part of being a good photographer is choosing a good background, right? What's behind your subject when you
Sure.
take the picture? Now,
Yeah.
you didn't take this picture, so you're not responsible for what's behind them. So that, I mean, does that kind of makes this interesting? And
Uh-huh.
then what I can do is fuse it, just kinds of softens it. And then what do you think the next thing I'm going to do is? I'm going to take my palette knife and what am I going to do?
You're going to blend it?
Yeah, and I'm going to take it off his what?
Oh,
I'm going to take
you're
his
gonna
off his arm.
sure.
Because, and then what does that do? That puts him where? In front of it,
Uh-huh.
right? So
Right.
in a way, I'm kind of, by building a background or putting something in the background, I'm sort of suggesting that he's
Yeah.
coming forward.
Yeah.
And the way I'm suggesting that he's coming forward is because I put something behind him.
Yeah.
So, and I think that that's a good use of this space, right? And
Okay.
I also think for some reason it's starting to make the composition more interesting. So
I think it's interesting. Yeah.
I think it's helping, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you tried to do when you did like the swirls on the side, right? And I think that that's exactly like the same idea. But I
Mm-hmm.
also feel like now they are existing in a forefront and a background is happening. So they're becoming more important as my prominent figures because there's something to compare them to.
Yeah, they're more dimensional. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. More dimensional. And it's just getting more interesting. So I could paint these, you know, any color. I mean, they could go, you know, another shade of blue, right? If we wanted to stick to the blue tone, right? And then if I introduce like another color, like light blue, which is like my favorite color, this cerulean, I'm also embracing all of the wax textures that I kind of made by doing this. And look, I can put, now I can use a little bit of this light blue over here.
I can't see what you're doing.
I'm going to show you. So I added this,
Oh.
I'm sorry. I added this light blue. This is like one of my favorite colors, this extra pale
Okay.
cerulean blue.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So I added it a little bit on the stripes to make them not so bright.
Yeah.
And I added a little bit of that blue to his hair. And I added
Ah.
a little bit over here so that it's just getting more painterly, right?
Yeah. How do you decide if you're going to use a oil stick, a woody crayon, or even encaustic colored wax? How do you decide which one you want to use?
That, my dear, my dear, is the 25 years of experience. No, that is no, seriously. I I think I have always had well, and this has changed over the years. Like when I first started, I would do like one coat of wax. And then I would be like, okay, that's all I can handle. I don't know how to do more. I'm scared. It's too thick. I can't see the photo. So it took just years of experience to then go, oh, I'm going to be brave and I'm going to do 2 layers of wax. Oh, and then
Right.
I can do 3 layers comfortably, you know? And I mean, at one point, I think a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, I got to have 6 layers, like, you know, but again, I'm not putting all those layers over the whole thing,
Right.
you know, and again, like, this is where your sort of knowledge of wax and what your vision is for the piece sort of have to work together.
Yeah.
And I like to think of my photo encaustics as being like thin to thick, right? So that areas of the whole panel are treated differently. There's
Yeah.
no rule that says I have to have the same amount of wax on every square inch of my artwork, right?
Right.
And
Right.
I try to work on visibility and what I call composition and weight. So the thicker the wax, the more abstract and blurry it's going to be. And the thinner the wax, the more photorealistic it's going to be.
Right. Yeah.
So I think you just have to kind of like balance those two. Now, I could technically do like one more waxing around this like bottom part, but I think if I did that, I think it would be so heavy at the bottom. And I kind of am liking it. I think one of the things I'm gonna have to do is, do you see like this space in here?
Yeah.
I feel like that's gonna have to go dark. And again, like, what do you decide to do that? When you know what you need to do, then you can start going, what material do I want to do it with? So
Sure.
I know I don't want to do it with wax, and why would I not do it with wax?
It's too heavy.
Well, and too hard to control,
Right.
and too hard to scrape away over their faces. That's like too
Right.
dangerous,
Yeah.
right? So then my other options are pigment stick, pan pastel, or woody crayon.
Right.
I generally use the woody crayons for line. If I want to draw a line, if I want to outline something, if I want to like make a leaf, if I want to draw an eyebrow, if someone's lips are gone and they need a lipstick, right?
Uh-huh.
So for fine line or line work, I use the woody crayons. Okay. What if I was going to write a word in here? You know, what if I wanted to write like love right there? I would use a woody crayon. If I wanted blend, right, or show off a texture, I'm going to use my pigment stick.
Okay.
And if I want to blend like translucent and lightly and like almost like in a cloudy way, I'm going to use pan pastel.
Okay.
This one can be what I call sharper. And why do you think this one can be sharper? Because it can be what? Then the pan pastel, it can be what?
I don't know.
Thicker.
Oh.
Thicker. Like you cannot get volume, depth on pan pastel.
Okay.
Right? Because it's powder. You can't physically build it up.
Right. Right. Right.
Like it's nearly impossible to make it opaque. Right? Because it's always gonna like poof out, or if you heat it up, it's gonna spread out. It's like too weak and translucent. So like say I really wanted to make something like solid, like here, I just really want, like, do you see how thick?
Yeah.
I mean, right?
Yeah.
So I can leave that like that, or I can take my finger or a paper towel and I can what?
Blend it.
Blend it, right? So this is called blending, right? And as I'm blending, I'm making it more translucent, right? And it's also going like what I call into the wax texture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's also, but it is also really creating a nice like highlight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And I think
So
that
are
looks
you gonna,
good
do
there.
you fuse that at the end? Are you gonna fuse everything?
That's a good question. I do not feel like it's necessary to fuse pigment sticks. You, I could do two things. I could just set this aside and let it dry,
Uh-huh.
or I can fuse it. If I fuse it though, I might lose my texture.
That's
So,
right. You
so
might,
you,
yeah.
so you do not have to fuse it. You can just set it aside and let it dry. It'll take about a week or two to dry. A week.
Oh, wow.
It'll take a week, a couple days.
Okay, well, since I live in a really dry climate, I don't have to deal with any humidity.
Oh yeah, well then yours might dry by tomorrow.
Right.
Right. All right, we've got a few more minutes. Do you want to paint the bottom of what? And you know what else too? I feel like I could mail this to you.
I think I could do better by watching you, and that would be great if you wanted. I think it's not okay. So maybe I can't do two things at once, like work on
That's
this and
okay.
watch you.
You know what? That's okay. So look, I'm gonna finish this. We've got like 4 more minutes. I'm gonna finish this by doing what I call reverse shading, where I'm gonna take this dark color. This is actually a really pretty color. This is Payne's Gray.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna take the Payne's Gray and I'm making them an archway. Do you see what I'm doing?
Yes. Uh-huh.
So, and I think I'm gonna end up using a little, and what's nice about Payne's Gray is that sometimes it looks blue and sometimes it looks gray,
Hmm.
depending on the other colors I think the other colors that are near it.
It's a dark gray, right? Or
Payne's Gray, yeah, I think
yeah.
it actually has a little bit of blue in it, but
Hmm.
so, and do you see how I'm like shading the outside edge of
Mm-hmm.
this? And I can use it to kind of like shade a little, a little in here. I could use it a little bit as a, under the flowers a little bit. I can use it a little bit at the top of his shoulder. But I think that looks pretty good.
Yeah, I do too. I think I have lots of ideas about what I can do with all my many uh, samples of this picture. Yeah.
Oh, good. Well, I hope this was inspirational. I think that playing around with finishing the background, I also think that eliminating the frame that they were in is helpful, right? And again, like you've noticed really, and we've talked about this a lot today, I do a lot of what I call on and then like partially off, right? So I put stuff
Right.
on and then I do a lot of blending, right? Or just like scraping down a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think that sort of rhythm of not just adding, like the rhythm of kind of like on and then off and then on and then switch materials. And really to answer your question, wax, encaustic wax is sort of like the most difficult, member of our little group here.
Yeah.
And I often use it in very like translucent, for the most part I use it as translucent as I possibly can.
Right.
And then I use the other coloring techniques to really finalize my color and sort of be able to control my shape and highlights and shadows. And see, I even had to put like another little highlight in his hair, and I still think the top could go a little bit darker, like up here, because I honestly just don't want to see this white stripe
Oh,
there.
right. Okay.
You know what I mean? So then I could go back to wax where I can just, literally, and if I wanted to, I could make this like something interesting. Oh, well, remember how we were just gonna, but like this could be fun. I could have used the stencil here. I mean, I just kind of made that brush shape.
Yeah.
I mean, you could do anything up there.
I like it.
It's cute. It's cute. And
How
I,
do you know, how do you know when to stop? Because one thing leads to another, and you do something and then you do something else on top of that. I mean, I don't mean just you. I mean, that's the nature of the whole thing is
I
you
agree. And you know how I deal with that is I do exactly what you're doing is I work on more than one piece at a time, right?
yeah.
So theoretically, I would say, okay, stop here. And then I would pick up another piece and start working on another piece and be like, come back to this another day, look at it. And you know what else I do is I take photos. Like I'm going to take a photo of this and send it to you. I edit actually away from my studio. So I take pictures of the artwork and I look at them when I'm not like with them and I
Oh,
kind of decide if they're done or not.
oh,
Because I think that there is a lot of personal attachment to artwork and sometimes like almost like a tug of war about getting stuff done or making it good enough. So you often need to just like take a break, walk away, you know, get a drink of water, take a picture of it, think about it, and then come back, right?
sure, yeah.
So those are my suggestions.
Okay.
Hey, and I gotta roll because I need to. This is my last day to get to work with kids outside before whatever
Oh,
school stuff starts, whatever that means.
it's already started here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
How is it going? Are they in school or are they virtual?
It's a hybrid, they're in school a couple days and at home a few days.
Right. I think that's what they're trying to do here, but then they said they're only doing virtual to start.
Okay. So I was
Um,
wondering, we have another lesson left at